Hey everyone, this is Tierney Cherie from African Esquire TV. I'm doing a late night video, or late for me because I usually don't do videos at nighttime. And as you see, I'm dressed down and just chilling, as opposed to trying to put on my normal, do. And the reason is I really did not want to talk in the context of being at my desk and sitting and dissecting this issue, because that's not the space to me for that. I did not want to bring this issue to there, and so I felt like, as far as the context of the conversation I had today on African spirituality versus Abrahamic religion and all those things, this is something that you just bring directly to the people and discuss. So what do I want to discuss in regards to today's conversation? The reason I wanted to have the conversation was really because, as I said in the production, I see a lot of venom being spit in both ways. I see a lot of people who say that they're tolerant, saying things that are not tolerant. I see a lot of people who say that I'll work with anyone, who are putting out things that are going to, if anything, make people not want to work with you. And that's a real issue to me, because I truly believe we can really work together, like on anything. I think most people agree with that, but I truly believe we can work together without making it inside of a context where we feel like our religious objectives are being met. And that was really what I meant and hoped to achieve through the conversation. And that was what I told everyone. I wanted to have a conversation, not a debate. I do feel like it became a debate, and that was very unfortunate to me. The reason why I think it became a debate is because you can't say that you're not debating a person's religion when you're literally putting their religion out there and saying that your religion is false. And when it went there, that triggered things in me, obviously. I mean, I'm sure you could tell at one point it felt triggering, because there's this struggle of like, okay, am I going to pull out the actual scripture and try to go through all this, whenever that's not what we're here for? We're here to talk about, do these religions compromise African liberation? But then I was upset at that, and that, to me, again, it was triggering. And honestly, to anyone, like, I just don't have that approach with people, that I'm going to tell you why your belief system is completely defunct, unless I see that person, honestly, as an adversary. That's when I'm approaching them with that type of logic. But then when I thought about it, I think that the problem that occurred was that when I put the title out there, does Abrahamic religions compromise African liberation, there wasn't a clear articulation of what we're trying to get at when we're talking about liberation. And so what I want to share is that what liberation is to me as an African person. Liberation to me has a meaning, obviously, politically. Politically, I believe Africa must be free. Politically, I believe Africans must control their own destinies. Politically, I believe that the system that has deprived us and robbed us of all of our resources has to be destroyed. I believe that. That's what liberation means in a political sense. But then where we got to in the conversation, I think, is what is liberation in the spiritual sense or the cultural sense, beyond just getting your land. That's something for me that has been an ongoing learning experience. And I'll tell you why it's ongoing. Whenever I was younger, when I first became like a serious Christian, because I've, like many people, I grew up in a church, but at one point it went from me just going to church to like, wow, like this is something that I'm passionate about. This is something that I've experienced like in a different way from what I had before. Whenever I came to that realization, I was automatically brought into a belief system that I believe goes contrary to the belief system of Yeshua, of Yahweh. And that belief system was that I had to become acceptable in all ways to white society. I had to leave anything that resembled blackness. I had to assimilate. And that assimilation was where I would find my freedom. That assimilation was where I would find my liberty. That was honestly my mindset. That was the church that I went to. And let me by this way say, this is not, in my opinion, the church I went to was a little extra with it, in that it was just a different type of place, that really celebrated that aspect without saying it directly. But if you're constantly being shown positive images, but when those images are positive, it's anything that looks like European or European civilization, you're implicitly telling people that this is what you inspire to. And if you ever want to talk about anything particular to African culture, but those things aren't embraced, then you're implicitly telling people that those things aren't welcome. So that's the system that I was brought up in, and that's why I adopted those type of beliefs. The change came from me when I started questioning, because I felt like the things that I was reading inside of the scriptures are not what I was seeing, and that became very bothersome to me. I think everyone who has that experience should take it serious and not try to just live with what you feel like are the contradictions, but understand that if you're being brought to a certain revelation at a certain time, that means that there has to be a shift. Otherwise, you're just going to live inside of something that is dead. So what I started doing is I started reading for myself. And long story short, I would say I kind of rebelled against that system completely. I chopped my hair off. You guys see I have hair now, but like in the beginning, like I used to love having straight, relaxed hair. And I went from that to like, take it all off. I don't want it. I did things like, you know what? I want to do something contrary to what makes sense scripturally to me. So when you see people saying, don't get piercings, don't get tattoos, but then the same scriptures in Leviticus, you'll see things that those people are fine with doing, something like wearing 2 different linens from a cloth, or something like, being around a disease and a pestilence or something like that. You're fine like doing that and without all the protocol, but you want to come at me for having a piercing or a tattoo. I'm gonna get a piercing and I didn't get a tattoo, but I could get some piercings. That was me rebelling. Not against necessarily individuals, but against the system that had been implanted inside of my brain. Like I felt robbed of truth. I realized that I had been brought into an understanding that had me captive. That was what to me bothered me and had me going on a road to say, you know what, I don't really want to mess with this. Now, I didn't do what some people would do in that situation and throw everything out. The reason is I had a personal and spiritual connection, experience that no matter how much you show me, no matter how much you tell me, I'm not going to forget, the spiritual connections that I've experienced inside of the context of this faith. But I have an understanding that those spiritual experiences were not connected to man, or not connected to these rules that they put out there that were arbitrary, or not connected to their interpretation of politics, because politics, of course, comes in when you're talking about things like this. Not connected to that, but it was connected to something beautiful, something that I cannot explain to anyone because it's personal. It's a personal experience, and that's what that's one thing I always took away from when you look at someone like Malcolm. That was a personal experience, and I could never go to Brother Malcolm, and talk to him about, here's why your personal experience does not match up, or here's why your personal experience is actually not forward for liberation. If you understand what I'm saying, like there's some things that really are like just sacred, like it is, and a person's religion is one of those things. So having that experience, I knew that I had to, at the very least, question everything, and that's what I started doing. I questioned everything. I questioned the ways that things were interpreted. I questioned the ways that, um, the ways that I worshipped. I questioned everything. I questioned everything the preachers said. And it was to the point that I had to just leave that church because I'm just sitting here questioning all day and there's no point in sitting in that church. So this is a journey for anyone who is of any faith, whenever you're coming to believe and realize that these things have been compromised, not anything having to do with God, but for man. And that's really where I think the strength is in any religious belief, honestly. What I wanted, the purpose of the conversation, where I wanted it to go, and even if this is going to fail in achieving that, I'll leave it at this and let that be out there, that this is my mindset of what needs to happen, is that there are people who have been oppressed. They've been oppressed not because of their religion. They've been oppressed because they are African. They've been oppressed because of their material, the material gain that could be achieved by overtaking those people. And those people have beliefs, religious beliefs, and those religious beliefs have been used to further have them captive. And I'm truly of the belief, personally, that even if you don't believe in what they believe, that if you are someone who can draw them to the commonalities that we all believe. So for example, I'm sure we all believe that you should love your neighbor, or we all believe that people who are rich and taking all the resources, that those things are abominable. We all believe certain principles. And if you can draw the people to the principle that they do believe, then that faith that was a weapon in the hands of the enemy becomes a weapon in the hands of Black liberation. And that then goes from being a difference to being a positive aspect of how we can move together. And that's why I said we have to look at what the goal is. The goal of liberation. The goal of liberation to me, as a follower of Yeshua, as a Christian, the goal of liberation to me has to be unlearning all of the attachments that the European system has put on an indigenous faith. The goal of liberation to me has to be finding things that were incorrect, finding things that were misstated, and done so intentionally to enslave my people, and using those things to draw out the truth. And the goal of liberation to me has to be not just saying that what you believe is different, but saying that what you believe can be beautiful if utilized in the right way. Those are the goals of liberation to me. And where I hope the conversation, because I know the conversation will always go on. This is a conversation that's been happening before I've been alive, and it's going to continue. But where I hope it will go for our people is that we start understanding that there are commonalities. Some people will say those commonalities because people got it from Africans. Hey, whatever. Some people will say those commonalities will come because all people have experienced the same God. Hey, whatever. Whatever belief you have, that's not the point. The commonalities that we have of freedom, of liberation, of fighting against oppression, those things will get us further than the differences. And you can discuss the differences, certainly discuss the differences, in a context where you think it's going to be helpful. But when you realize that it's not achieving a goal, my personal belief is that you find a way to withdraw, which I felt myself doing a few times, because as a human being, you just want to react and speak. But when you consider what's happening around you, people who are of your faith, they're not going to be changed by whether or not you get a certain point across. People who are not of your faith, they're not going to be changed by whether or not you get a certain point across. But what can be changed, I do believe, for our people, is that we can learn to apply whatever spiritual concepts we have to our reality as an oppressed people. And I hope that is where the conversation will go. I think for me, a challenge that I have for the Christian perspective, and understand that, you know, a part of why I made the choice initially, like, you know what, this is going to be a channel about Pan-Africanism and colonialism, and I'm going to take Malcolm's advice and say that, you know what, leave your religion at home. That choice, I think, has been positive in a lot of ways, because there's a lot of people who, you don't know me for the beliefs I have, you know me for the issues I talk about, and that's very important to me. But the other challenge, I think, is that most of my people are inside of religious systems that are not helpful to them. Most of my people are inside of religious systems that are oppressive to them. And my opinion is they're not oppressive because the principles are oppressive. They're not oppressive because the individuals who created or wrote the faiths or whatever are oppressive. They're oppressive because in the hands of the enemy, who will water something down, who will take it and twist it and manipulate it and use it against you, in the hands of that person, that thing that should be a cause for liberation becomes a cause for captivity. That's what happened to me, honestly. And that's why, having that experience, I understand the power that we could have as a people if we actually learned to find ways to draw out of people what those morals are and how they apply to the liberation struggle. Because doing that for me, I was not familiar with any Pan-Africanist anything when I was a kid. But doing that for me, following the principles and not following man, that brought me to a very different person who I am today. So I would just leave this off by saying I would like to put the idea out there. If you listen, you listen. If you don't, you don't. But to put the idea out there that seeing that most African people subscribe to Abrahamic religions. Most African people subscribe to either Islam or Christianity. And they're saying that at some point, I forget when, like in the future, but at the rate of Christianity growing, that it's probably going to more so be Christianity. And that's not something I'm happy about, people, because the Christianity that I see growing is detestable to me. But understanding that these are the current realities that we deal with, they're there. You know, this is the current reality. I personally am of the belief that you're not going to stop most, you know, maybe some, but most people from being either Christian or Muslim. When you're committed to your faith, you're committed to your faith. But what you can do is learn those religions, learn those beliefs, learn about what Yeshua taught, learn about what the Prophet Muhammad taught, and draw those out there for the people to see that those principles are in contradiction with their reality, and that if you are complicit with this system, you are endorsing those principles. In my opinion, if someone is serious about the principles, then they're going to be outraged at that. They're going to be motivated to rid themselves of the things that are contradiction to their faith. If someone is not, then we know there that someone is not using the principles because they believe in them. They're using the principles because they see an advantage in them. My opinion is that we can use those things to achieve the purpose of liberation. Liberation, ending this video right here. Liberation being a free Africa from colonialism, a free Africa from imperialism, a free Africa from domination by white supremacist ideology, a free Africa from all of those things. Because I personally am of the belief that there's no faith that endorses people being subjugated. Let me not say no faith. None of the major religions, quote unquote, major religions, endorse the suffering that we're seeing of our people, endorse the enslavement that we see of our people, endorse the horrors that are occurring with our people. So I'm going to leave it at that. I just wanted to get those thoughts out there because honestly, I don't know if I'm going to even discuss this debate again, but I will certainly continue to discuss how I think people being a Christian, I think that I do have a responsibility to call out the things that are detrimental to the faith that people proclaim. You know, if you are someone who says you're a Christian, but let's go to the context of the conversation. You're someone that says you're a Christian, but you hate African spiritualists, people who practice traditional African religions. You think that they should be harmed. You should read about the Pharisees and what Yeshua did to the Pharisees when they brought someone out of the synagogue, this woman who was accused of sleeping with a man. They brought her out to be stoned. You know what he said? He said, whoever was without sin, you cast the first stone. Those are the things that I wish to draw attention to, that you people who say you love God, but you don't reflect the words that you say you believe, you have to be dealt with. You have to be dealt with when you're being a tool of the enemy. And you have to be dealt with whenever you are a manifestation of a white supremacist spiritual system that has co-opted so many of us to act against our people, possessed our people, I would say, to fight contrary to the freedom and liberation of the people. My honest heart, I'm motivated really by my heart most times, y'all. Like when I'm reporting on issues, a lot of times I internalize it. I internalize those things because of the moral compass that I have, because of my relationship with my God. And I know that if it hurts seeing it as a person, that it has to hurt seeing it as the Father. And those are the types of things that you want people who are of different beliefs to recognize. It's not that they're going to see suffering and say, oh, you'll deal with it in the afterlife. No. You've seen suffering. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to challenge the situation? Are you going to eradicate the poverty that is in your neighborhood? Are you going to give to your neighbors or seek to see that the system that ensures that poverty is destroyed? Are you going to do that? That's what you're doing if you're moving by the principles and the morals that you have. So I would just, end this as saying, everyone, I hope we had a great discussion. I think we got a lot of things out, but I hope that we as a people can move forward. And forward to me means that public enemy number one is decolonization. That's not a small task to me personally. That's not a task that you have one arm, fighting people with their beliefs, and then you have the other arm of colonialism. To me, that takes your everything, and that's my opinion on that. So again, I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. I certainly did at certain times, and I think overall we had a respectable conversation among everyone on there I love and I have respect for. So that's what I have on this. Like I said, very informal video, but I just wanted to put this out there because I'm coming to you with more things coming up. And so let me deal with this, and then we'll talk about things about this whole decolonization scheme, people, because we have to go after this system. That's all for you tonight. I'll see you guys in the next video.